right, we're back with episode 3. This is the Black and Blue podcast. Myself, Travis, co-host.
Emmett. Hi, everyone.
And yeah, black belt here, blue belt there. And today we are going over the great debate of gi or no-gi jiu-jitsu. What one's better? What do you like to do? Where do we go from there?
I have to start off by saying I feel like I don't really have a dog in this hunt or a horse in this race or however you say that, because I love them both. I think they both have their strengths and weaknesses, but as long as I'm training, I'm pretty happy. So, but let's explore. Let's see.
I think that's a valid answer for most jiu-jitsu guys. There's people that are very
dogmatic.
Yeah, and they're just like, no, gi's the way to go, or no, gi's the way to go, and like you get two definite sides of it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start with like my backstory. I started very much in the gi. I loved playing the gi back then. Most tournaments were only gi. Like it was rare. It was rare to find a no gi tournament. Like ADCC was around. EBI still hadn't come around, so no-gi wasn't really that big. But yeah, once I got into no-gi, I loved it. I loved the leg lock part of it. But yeah, I started in the gi, and I competed in the gi pretty much all the way up until like solely in the gi up until blue belt, mid blue.
So as a blue belt, can you expand on that thing a little bit, the leg lock part of it? Because I know we're skipping 5 points ahead here, but leg locks work with a gi, right?
They do. Most tournaments.
You should also say, sorry, I'm sick. We're going to work through
over a cold.
Yeah, but I'm getting over it. We're going to work through it.
We'll bug him in the comments. Just let him know that his voice sounds way better. And he should just like BB this.
Sorry, go ahead.
So in like IBJJF and in the gi, leg locks are more limited. Like you're not allowed heel hooks. You're not allowed like a lot of reaps. You saw in this last like Worlds IBJJF where like people were purposely pulling the leg across, which is a disqualification, but the ref wouldn't see it or they just didn't give a shit. And they disqualified the wrong guy. And you see it a lot, and it's like getting like soccer, where the guy's like, he's reaping my knee, and it was over and over and over. Horrible. Like IBJJF is plummeting because of it. I feel like that. But like back in the day, like gi, you're only allowed to do straight leg locks and knee bars sometimes. And then no-gi comes around and there's like, hey, you're allowed to do whatever you want.
But so it's not actually a function of the gi. It's a function of the rules in competition for the gi.
Yeah, it's the rule set. And it comes from, like, I had a good debate with Brett Cooper of like BC Kimonos, actually. He used to like come out and run a booth at like Sub Aces and stuff like that. And I was like, why am I not allowed to heel hook in the gi? And he was like, well, it's too much control and there's too much friction and he's not able to get out. And it's like, that's the dumbest thing. Like, just tap.
Why am I not allowed to choke him? Well, because he can't get out.
Yeah, it's like that. And in my opinion, that was a horrible like excuse. And I was like, no. Like, I feel like when we run our tournaments, we allow heel hooks in the gi at purple belt. And that was like very controversial. We got a lot of flack. We got a lot of shit for it. And it was like, you know what? Just chill out. Let's see how it goes. And in our first tournament that we allowed that, the only person to get like their knee wrecked was me in the no-gi super fight with Drew Weatherhead. So, and it was just it wasn't like a full on heel hook. It was just a weird movement that popped my knee, but like it was because we were going after legs and stuff like that. And the only guy to get injured was this guy. That was no-gi, and no other injuries. And like there's a couple of heel hook finishes, but nothing popped.
I think like what's interesting about that is, in my mind, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came around because people were coming from a non-dogmatic place. And they were like, let's change this. Let's make it practical. Let's make it, let's adapt it to the street. Let's make it awesome. Let's get rid of the non-functional bullshit. So then when you limit it by adding these sort of like made up limitations. Like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Doesn't that kind of like go against the ethos of the sport?
It truly does. And actually, there's a cool story that I heard that I read one time, and it was way back in the day, like Brazil, when like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, like that's what they're trying to market it as, was like coming up, and they were like teaching the rich people, like teaching all the rich kids that could come in and stuff like that. And then there's this guy Fada, Fada. Look him up. He was like, I'm gonna teach everyone. And he taught leg locks and heel hooks and knee bars. He was like the guy for leg locks way back when. And so like they had like this dojo thing where like the Gracies, and like this is all hearsay, it like might be like mythos or whatever, but it was like 20 Gracie guys versus 20 of Fada's guys, and Fada went like 19-1.
Wow.
And
really?
most of them were leg lock victories. And then from there it was like, oh well, leg locks are dirty,
right?
So that might be like a little mythos, that might be a little like who he said she said kind of thing.
Yeah,
but that's apparently where like leg locks being dirty came from. Was Fada wrecking people.
That's interesting.
I think his name is Oswaldo Fada.
That's an awesome name.
I know like, I love it. But
okay, but coming back to the gi versus no gi, we'll try and keep it on topic.
We kind of I digress.
Like, do you want to get into kind of the history of the gi and where that came from, and what your take on that is? I have some thoughts about, like, for me personally, what reasons that I like the gi based around that, but why don't you kick it off with
okay,
that stuff?
So like, and this is just going to be a brief history. Like, there's people that know way more than me about this.
Like, you're just going to make it up.
Yeah. I'm totally just going to like blow smoke out my ass and hope you guys take it. I'm like, I'm a black belt. Listen, and it doesn't. It sometimes works like that. But so jiu-jitsu started in the gi, right? Jiu-jitsu evolved from judo. Well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu evolved from like a judo kind of background. And judo itself evolved from another martial art, which evolved from another martial art. It was like in feudal Japan and stuff, it was just jujitsu. And it was like, what happens if my sword like gets broken or something, and like I need to do a takedown or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it evolved, and learning how to fight armed combatants kind of thing. And then it came to like Brazil through Maeda and stuff like that. And this is debated, and there's people that know so much more than me on the backstory, but like it started in the gi. And like you see in like original UFCs, people were still wearing whatever the hell they wanted.
Yeah,
like, Gracie in the gi. You had Art Jimerson with like one boxing glove. Like just crazy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it evolved from there. And why is it like thick material? Because if you wore everyday t-shirts, that thing is getting ripped off.
Totally.
That thing is, it won't last.
Totally.
So they needed to make something that would last.
Especially judo, you're literally like throwing the guy around. It's gonna
with it. Like you're never not grabbing it pretty much. So they needed something that they could train in, and everyone's like, oh, it's impractical. It's like, well, no, like I could scrunch up your t-shirt, wrap it around your neck, and do a collar choke the same way, right? It's just, people see it as like, oh, it's pajamas, and I make fun of it on the mat. It's like, oh yeah, everyone put on the pajamas kind of thing. But realistically, like if you want to learn how to choke, we're in Canada. People wear hoodies like what 90% of the year. Yeah, that hood is going to be used to choke someone out. Or you see someone get like their shirt, like in a street fight, shirt pulled over their head.
Oh, totally.
And like they don't know what to do. They're stuck. And like if you train in the gi, you're like another day at the office kind of thing, right? So that's kind of where it evolved from. And then I would say with the rise of MMA, a lot of Nogi started coming in, and ADCC really started picking up. And you saw a huge spike when EBI, so the Eddie Bravo Invitational.
Oh yeah.
When that started kicking off, it started producing like semi-stars. If you were in the jiu-jitsu community, they were like superstars to you, like Gary Tonin.
Oh, totally.
Eventually, Gordon Ryan, Eddie Cummins, like all these amazing jiu-jitsu guys. You know, it's like, God, these guys are so awesome. That was all Nogi. And like EBI is actually where a lot of like this leg lock craze came from too, like the Danaher Death Squad. And so that's kind of where you see a shift. So you have like ADCC, EBI, and now UFC Fight Pass Invitational. And then you have like the IBJJF on the other side of things for the gi. So that's where like the two sides kind of originated from. Then you have like offshoots like Sambo, which has like the gi top, Nogi bottoms, but
party on the top, business on the bottom.
Opposite. But like
totally,
you see that and you're just like, okay, but like jiu-jitsu stole like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu in general just went and cool, Sambo guys are doing that. We're just gonna steal and call it jiu-jitsu. That's all we did.
Is there any truth to that in your mind about the idea of one is better for self-defense?
No.
Zero truth to that.
I think they both have their merits.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone's wearing clothing, cool, use it to choke someone. If someone's not using clothing,
choke them a different way.
Or like, if you train exclusively in the gi and all you do is worm guard, you're probably gonna, but nobody actually does that.
Right.
Everyone trains everything. And like, even in the gi, if all you've ever done is train gi, you're still going to be able to manhandle someone if you're like competent. If you're a blue belt, you're going to be able to manhandle untrained guy. Regardless. Same with Nogi.
But I like that idea that it's like you're training for different circumstances, so be a well-rounded fighter by doing both. Like, you know, again, the idea of like being super dogmatic about it is like, okay, you know.
It doesn't make sense in my mind. I think
I'm trying to think of like an analogy, like in something else where it's, you know.
Man, that's a hard one.
That's a hard one, yeah.
We're still such a niche kind of sport. But I guess maybe gaming. Do you like PlayStation or Xbox?
You're asking me. You're saying like, yeah.
And it's like, well, they're both video game systems.
Right.
Do you like gi or no gi? Well, it's both jiu-jitsu, just how you want to play it.
Right. Except if you spend all your time playing PlayStation, you're going to not be very good at defending yourself.
Yeah. You're probably going to suck.
Yeah. It doesn't help. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's no validity in you're not going to be able to defend yourself if you only do one or the other.
Totally. So I think like my main thing, this is what I was texting you about the other day. The thing I like about the gi is you're coming into the dojo, you know, we don't refer to
enter the dojo.
We're entering the dojo. We're entering the dragon. You enter the dojo. You're putting on something that is representative of, it's like switching. You're coming from, you know, daily life, everything that goes on. And then you're like putting this on and you're switching into jiu-jitsu mode. And it's like symbolic in a way. I like the idea that it's tied to tradition too. And that this is something it kind of like, even if it's only subconsciously or somehow, you know, in the back of your mind, you're being a part of something that is centuries old. And like this knowledge has kind of built up over the centuries and you're benefiting from that and like practicing this as an art. And yeah,
totally. And I'd agree. I like, as soon as like when I was like a mechanic, like I came in and I was like, cool, time to suit up, put on the gi, or even put on no gi. Like as soon as you put on spandex,
like when you worked as a mechanic, you'd show up in your gi.
I would just like show up in the gi. I remember one time, little offshoot story, I won a super fight. I won like a sub-ace super fight.
Yeah.
And I brought the belt to work. I was like, what's up? Go ahead. Give me some garbage work. I'll show you guys what's up.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I like the transition. I like that idea. And the idea behind you work and then you come here and you put on like the gi or you tie your belt kind of thing. And it's like, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing now. And your mind can switch.
And that's interesting too, the tie into the belt. Like me personally, I like the idea of, and we'll get into that in a different episode, the idea of belts and ranks and stuff. We don't want to dive too much into that today, but like that's something, especially maybe this is true of some other like older grapplers, that like it gives me something to aim for, you know, like I'm not gonna go in the UFC. I'm not, you know, gonna be a world champion, you know, like it's not in the cards for me, but I can aim to get my black belt. And that's part and parcel of the gi, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like at our club, I don't promote in Nogi. I think that's it's a personal opinion. I think it's stupid. You see like people that only train Nogi all the time and then they get a belt. It's like, what the hell is the belt holding up?
Yeah. Just like aesthetically you have a problem with it.
Yeah. Like I don't mind like that there's black belts that have only ever trained Nogi. I don't care. But personally, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to tie it on your shorts and rash guard.
It's just
here's
like
a belt. Why?
Yeah.
Like just do your thing.
Yeah.
Play jiu-jitsu however you want to play it.
Yeah.
But I ain't promoting you if you're not wearing a gi. It doesn't make sense in my mind.
And I think like really, I mean, we're joking about the aesthetically thing, like that's the problem, but like if anything, it probably also means you're not as well rounded because you don't have any of that sort of grip fighting stuff. You know, you don't, you're missing an aspect.
100%. And the people that like argue like, oh, I only train Nogi because Gordon Ryan only does that and he's the best in the world.
Right.
Guess what? He trains gi.
Right.
He does it, and he actually has like probably some instructionals coming out.
Yeah.
But he trains it. He knows how to use it. It's
of course, yeah.
Come on. And that's the dumbest excuse to not train.
Yeah. And like an analogy there is like when you see, you know, like, so a pro surfer has, you know, they use like these little boards that don't weigh anything. And it's like, well, those guys are using those boards. Well, yeah, but you're not those guys.
Yeah.
So use a board that you're going to be able to float on and paddle into waves and go straight. Like,
like there's levels to it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I feel like everyone, if you're training jiu-jitsu, you should be at least training the gi twice a week. If you're strictly like no gi 5 times a week,
right?
Train the gi once a week.
Yeah.
It gives you a different look. And then if you want to compete, it gives you more opportunities. If you're like, oh, all I want to do is compete all the time. Cool. Get good at both. And then you can compete in both. You can have super fights in both.
Yeah.
I'll take any super fight. I don't care. I'm one of those guys that just says, yes, let's do this. Okay. I've went into so many injured, like wrecked. And I'm just like, and they're like, we need a guy. I'm like, yeah. But I don't care if it's gi, no gi.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I care about is the rule set. And if they're like, you're only allowed to use straight leg locks, I'm like, like, let's make this like fun and throw everything in there.
Right.
Like, I think the only rule I ever turned down was like, I was asked if like finger locks were okay. And I looked at and I was standing there with my opponent looking at the promoter and I was like, I got to work on Monday. Like I got to twist wrenches with these fingers. And he's like, yeah, let's just like gentleman's agreement of no finger bars.
Yeah. That's like, so, okay, you guys are okay with this or that. Like, and what about hammers?
Yeah.
Can we use hammers in this fight? Like, no, I think I want to have my teeth. And,
it was crazy. I was just like,
Finger
How about no
locks.
finger locks?
Right?
And the dude was like, yeah, no finger locks. And like, we were cool with everything, like
Yeah.
neck cranks,
Yeah.
twisters, heel
Finger
hooks.
locks. Yeah.
And then it was like,
Oh man.
are we just like breaking each other's fingers? Fish hooking? What are we doing here?
Finger
Like,
locks.
come on.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that was the only time I ever like looked at it and I was like, okay, that rule set might be like pushing it.
Like what happens in the UFC? Oh, I guess they have the finger gloves, but
They
like,
have the gloves,
but
but
like
you
technically you could just grab a guy's finger and break it in the UFC.
well, you have to grab 3 or more fingers.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just be like snap.
Yeah.
And then he keeps going, you do another one and another one.
Just eventually can't fight his crippled hands coming at you like Mr. Burns.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What about the differences in the game? You know, like what are some of the key differences in gi game versus no gi game?
I would definitely say that the gi game is more slow. Like it's a slower control. Like there's more grips. There's more things to like just friction to hold you still.
Right. It's hot as fuck.
Yeah.
We know that.
You're just dying from sweat. But it's definitely a slower, more methodical. Maybe not methodical, but it's definitely slower paced because there's so many other ways to just grip and hold you in a place.
Yeah.
Nogi, you see a lot more like athletic and a lot more like, and by athletic I mean like spurts of energy to get out of things. Where if you had like gi pants on, there'd be too much friction,
right,
to like jump through.
Right.
And like we touched on it already, the leg lock game is far superior in a no-gi, I feel. But like once you like go to that gi and you can now get choked with that gi, you're like, damn,
that is a legit other dimension.
It is.
I've like started to do that a little bit, and it's like you feel good.
Oh yeah.
when you like, and then you like spin into something and you're already choking them with the gi. That feels like
One of my favorite highlights was like when I was a blue belt and it was almost a Peruvian necktie.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my hands clasped. I just had the far collar.
Right.
So I think it's called like a helicopter something these days. But like,
that's awesome.
I love the Peruvian and Nogi. So I was like, sweet Peruvian. But I couldn't get my second hand through. So I just like grabbed the lapel on the side. I was like, I'm going to try it.
That's awesome.
Jumped into it and it made him gurgle. And I was like, oh.
That was like probably a month ago, maybe even longer, a couple months ago. I was like, for those people out there who don't know Travis, he doesn't give out compliments easily. He's not like, hey, good job. He's, like every once in a while. Yeah. And every once in a while, you might even just get like a, like one of those
little head nod.
And you're like, yeah. So, but I forget who I was rolling with out here, and you happened to be sitting right there. And I like grabbed a lapel, spun around, and it was almost like a north-south collar choke thing.
Oh yeah.
And like I looked at you, and you were like, yeah. And I was like, for 2 days, I was like, I'm fucking badass, dude.
Yeah. When I give out compliments, it's rare, but it comes from like a good place, like I'm not giving you. Not giving you fluffy compliments.
Yeah,
If I see something cool or like make someone make a funny noise, I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I'll give you a nod.
You make someone's face turn purple. Like, good job. Yeah. Well, I mean, not to get into a whole other topic, but like, that's when compliments matter. Is when that it's hard earned, or like compliments, or just like recognition of some kind that you're like, okay, yeah, you genuinely are progressing. Then it's not just like, hooray for you, you showed up to class, like, good job. It becomes meaningless, right?
I actually kind of get flack for that from some people, like, and they're like, man, they just want to know that they're doing good. And I'm like, if you're doing good, or if you're doing the move properly, or if you're doing like stuff properly, I generally don't say anything.
Right.
It's when you're like having troubles or struggling is when I come and talk to you.
Right.
Um,
And the other thing, and like I think the flip side to that is like a good professor, a good whatever the word is, like that people generally use. I see professor used a lot. We don't use that here, but coach. A good coach is like super observant of everything that's going on in the gym, and that's something that I've noticed a few times where like it'll seem like we'll go 3 weeks without really like having a deep interaction on any level, like other than a question here and there, and then you'll be like, I noticed in that role you had with so and so 2 weeks ago that you did this, and you've kind of done this every day since then, that you come in and it's like, oh, you saw all that, like, so yeah. I think when you have the evidence that people realize that you're seeing that stuff and not correcting, that's where the difference, you know what I mean?
Totally. And I'm one of those guys that will roll with whoever.
Yeah.
And I'll be scanning the room, seeing what other people are doing.
I mean, you're obviously too busy. When it's me, you're too busy.
Yeah,
you're like
totally.
defending for your life.
I'm just like, oh my goodness.
I can barely
survive. Where did this lapel choke come from? I thought he was a Nogi guy. But I honestly, like, I'll just scan the room. I'll be watching. And then I'm one of those weird ass people that has a notebook on my students.
Right.
I take notes. I'm like, okay, we're going to work on this.
It's kind of Stalin-y. Like,
yeah, totally. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, he said something against the government.
I'm going to note that on February 2nd, and we're going to revisit that at the end of the month.
That's cool, though. That's cool. Like, I mean, I think that's what people, when you're really starting to get something out of it, like I was watching one of those, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, one of his videos the other day, and it was like he was talking about an older black belt who got his black belt at like basically a McDojo kind of thing, and he went to a new gym and was just, at least he felt like he was just getting schooled there, and he was kind of counseling him like, maybe you should consider giving it back. But I think like, I doubt, like I wouldn't see that happening with someone leaving here to go somewhere else.
No, if you get it, you earned it. That was Jiu-Jitsu, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That dude's amazing.
Yeah, he's got good advice, man.
Yeah. I'll definitely shout out that guy. If you hear anything on Jiu-Jitsu, always like Chewy. So CHEW Jitsu.
Yeah.
Dude is golden.
Yeah. We should invite him here.
He'll come up to Canada and be like, why is it so cold? I'm leaving.
Yeah. It's hard to breathe in the mountains. And with this collar choke.
Yeah. Watch out. I think that he'd wreck me, like, easily.
I think he's a big dude, right?
I'm pretty sure. Like, I saw him at ADCC.
Oh, yeah.
I'm taller.
Yeah.
But I'm a skinny tall compared to that guy.
And
He's thick.
You also don't do anything other than martial arts. Like, you're not out there, like, pumping iron or anything.
No.
Yeah.
I've started actually doing squats and push-ups.
And jazzercise.
Yeah, jazzercise. Well, that's just on the side.
That's a hobby.
I've been doing that for a long time.
You're actually pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
I'm getting good at salsa too.
Nice.
See me.
Nice.
These hips don't lie. That's salsa, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to do a separate episode about that. We'll get deep into that one.
We'll invite Shakira. Shakira.
I'm down for that one too. What else? What else about gi, no gi?
I mean, there's the debate is usually which one is better, which one is going to be self-defense, which one is going to work for you. And honestly, like, we have one class a week that's dedicated to the gi. Everything else is wear whatever you want. And I feel that people either like go one way or the other. And
oh, really? And you see that?
Yeah, like,
really?
But then oftentimes they'll do like a crazy like switch, and it'll just be dramatic. Like Jason loves the gi, loved the gi, always wore it like every single class. And then something I don't know, he saw something or he played around with something and he switched and he went to Nogi there for a while. He's back to gi, but he went to Nogi for quite a while. And it was just, I think people just want to see a different look. And that curiosity leads to getting over plateaus. Like sometimes you just play around in the gi and you just keep, you keep playing that same game over and over and over. Yeah. And you're like,
right. Maybe this will be a catalyst for change somehow.
Yeah. And it usually is. It usually like promotes growth in various ways that you would never know.
The other thing too, as you noted, it's cold as hell here most of the year. And like, it's nice to wear gi in the wintertime, but then summertime, it's often we get a few weeks of super, super heat. And then it's like, dude, you can pay me to wear gi.
Yeah, it is absolutely
terrible. It is torture. And then like, you probably love that because you're like, I'm going to hide Emmett's face inside my gi.
Yeah, I totally like steamroller you. I'm just like, yep, I'm going to bat wing you.
Yeah, it's hot. That. Yeah.
And I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I heard a thing and it was on Craig Jones and like his game being the same as his personality, very trolly. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's most of my game. It's just being
trolly.
Being trolly. It's like, oh, you like that? Okay, well, we're going to do something else. And then I'm going to like muffler you when you have 0 arms to defend yourself. Like, it's crazy.
Like Danny, when Danny was here, I remember like this. I was a white belt when he was here. I think he was here in, I don't know. It was early on.
Yeah.
And like it probably, we mentioned last time when you gave him the nod to like, like take me out. And then, but there was one time when there's like, I'll remember in a second like what it was. It was like we always have music playing when we're rolling, and it was like this song that like, you know what it was? It was
for Danny, it was probably like Backstreet Boys or
it was like Black Eyed Peas or what's the Fergie? My Humps or whatever. And then so he's kicking my ass, like just like brutalizing me, and then singing along to that while kicking my ass, and it's just like humiliating.
Oh yeah,
like so trolly.
There's like singing to the song, or you're just like yell at another group, and you're like, "Hey, Jason, like tighten up on that guard," or like, and like the person that you're rolling with is like, dude, like I'm right here, and like you just see them like drop. They're like, I thought I was doing so good, and like it's just heartbreaking, and like I don't know. I think it's trolling. I think it's funny.
Awesome.
I do it just to, like if someone's like getting pretty high up on their horse.
I'll
be like, okay, well.
I think like, and we talked about this one time, I think one thing that's awesome about jiu-jitsu, and maybe we do an episode about this one day, is how it's something that you get more and more like down the rabbit hole on. And so like when you're rolling, you can find things really hilarious, like super funny, like just you're like, I don't want to give this up. I don't want to give this up. Maybe he won't notice if I give this up. I gave it up. Oh fuck! You're like, that always happens when I'm rolling with you, and we'll both just laugh because I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. It's like super super insider humor.
Oh like, yeah. If you were somewhat like a spouse, sitting on the sidelines, they'd be like, what was so funny? And then you try to explain it. You're just like,
you try to explain it. You're like, oh, because I was like this, and I had that, and he like I wasn't sure if he knew if I had to do this move, and then they'd be like, oh my god, please stop fucking.
They instantly regret asking, and you're just like, you probably don't need that.
All jiu-jitsu stories, like we'll be driving, and I'll like start to say something about jiu-jitsu to my wife, and I'll be like, oh man, the other day at jiu-jitsu I was rolling with so and so, and then I'm just like, I just stop because I'm
you can almost see the glaze coming over the eyes.
Just like, and then what happened?
Travis started laughing at you again. What an asshole!
Sure sounds fun.
You were both like super sweaty.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like something I really am into. Yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we covered some of the top points on like what the good things are. Some cons for like gi jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You get really stagnant when you're grip reliant,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
your hands get wrecked.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing. Like I'd come out and like I was turning wrenches, like
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
So I just like for a lot of it, I
Yeah.
don't even use gi grips when I'm wearing the gi.
Right.
Because it just wrecks my hands. And like
Right.
if you've ever seen like the Meow twins
Yeah.
or Meow brothers, twins?
I don't know.
Oh, brothers. Anyways,
I'm assuming they're cats.
yeah, pretty much. But their knuckles are giant. Like they've been dislocated and all this. Like they're jacked up, and they can't even like close their hands. Really, it's like,
Oh,
yeah, I don't want that. I want to
Yeah.
be able to like paint or draw, whatever. Like
Yeah,
I like to use my hands for that kind of stuff, and I don't want to have like these jacked up gorilla hands.
totally.
And so that would be a giant downside.
Yeah. But you like, I do remember as a white belt being like holding on,
Oh yeah,
just holding
death
on,
gripping.
just holding on and pulling someone and just being like, I'm not letting go.
Yeah, and that's kind of on the pro side where you can be like, oh my goodness, they're passing and like this sucks, and you can kind of just hold them in with the fabric.
Yeah.
Like you're not you have a little bit of a crutch when you can hold on to the fabric that way as a beginner, for sure.
Have we ever on the podcast talked about my first gi?
No, we definitely
We-
we gotta do it
We
now.
gotta cover that.
Yeah, that's,
So I'll tell my side of the story, and then I think I now know enough like about what really happened that I doubt your story will be too much different. But so I'm like, I was like, man, I want to. I think it was COVID had kind of ended.
Yep.
And I was like, I had kind of been tinkering with the stand-up classes and stuff like that, and then but like I had to leave because COVID started and I had like a brand new baby and stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm done fucking around. I want to learn jiu-jitsu. And I think I paid for like a year up front or like 6 months up
I
front
think
or
he
something.
came in with 6 months.
Yeah. And I was like, here's the money. And then I was like, oh shit, I also got to get a gi. And then I was like, well, I guess I have this old judo gi that has been sitting in my closet for like 5 years or whatever. And it was like literally a $50 gi. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And like,
It felt like a $50 gi. God, I hated gripping that thing.
So, and I was like coming to a bunch of classes, and then kind of right after that, I think you had a deal on that was like sign up for X amount of time and you get a free gi. And so one day you were like, hey man, I got this gi, like, do you want it? Like, and I was like, yeah, dude. I felt like super stoked. I was like, thanks, man. That's fucking awesome. It was significantly too big for me because it was like you have something like 70 gis or something. So
Oh yeah, I have way too many.
but like it was your slightly used gi. I had to have it like shortened on the legs and everything, so and made bigger in the arms, obviously.
Oh yeah. We got weak ass little arms.
But I was like, oh, thanks, man. And then like went right into that. But then after a while, I was like, maybe that wasn't like totally out of the goodness of his heart. Maybe it was because this gi is so shitty and like it just feels like fucking sandpaper. Yeah.
It was horrible. I had like, there's a thing in the gi when like someone like rubs any part of it, like it can like break up your face. Like it's like Velcro across your face. It's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Your gi was like full on like 20 grit sand.
I gotta bring that thing back, dude. It's like a weapon.
I'm gonna find that thing and burn it. I remember like there was a couple of people and like Danny was one of them. He's like, dude,
fuck that gi, dude.
He's like, we should get him another gi. I was like,
oh, that's
I
awesome.
was like, I got one for him.
Yeah.
And like the one I gave you is actually pretty sweet. I actually
It's awesome. Compliments on that gi all the time.
But it was like 4 inches too short in my arms because I got these big ass gorilla arms.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got one for him. And then I gave it to you and you're like, oh, this is so sweet. I was like, man, I hope he throws out that gi right now. Like in my head, it's just like spinning. I was like, that thing needs to go the way of the dinosaurs.
I mean, you should have just said, like, dude, please don't fucking bring that gi here anymore. It sucks. Here's another one, you know?
Well,
Like,
I'm so stoked that you were on the mats.
Yeah,
And you were like in it. I was like, this is awesome. And I was like,
and we didn't know each other that well.
Yeah,
So you don't want to hurt my feelings or something.
Yeah.
Maybe my grandmother gave me that or something. Yeah. She used to use it.
It got shipped up from Brazil.
Yeah.
I was like, man. Yeah, I did. And I'm not one of those guys though. Like, if it stunk, I would have told you.
Oh yeah.
But it was clean. It was like it was decent. It was just a horrible thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it stunk, I'd be like, hey, get rid of that stinky gi or do something about it.
Yeah.
But there was no like probable cause for me to be like, hey. It was just I didn't like the gi. Most people didn't like the gi, and I was like, I got one for him. Here's a nice soft gi.
Nice. That's awesome.
And like, yeah, that judo gi, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was funny.
So actually on that note, my very first gi was white Gracie Combatives gi. It had like the Gracie logo. It was an A5 because at the time I was 220 pounds. And I was like doing like the jiu-jitsu combatives on the rolled out sleeping bag.
Yeah.
In this A5 gi.
Nice.
And I had that gi all the way up until I moved here.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I dropped like down to 190. I actually went to the doctor. I was like, I just lost a bunch of weight. Is there something going on? And she's like, no, you're a healthy weight now. I was like, was I fat? And then like I'm looking at pictures back then. I had a little pudgy face. My neck was hard to imagine, but my neck was even bigger.
Doing jiu-jitsu?
No, I think it was just like where I was living was just a crazy amount of stress.
Yeah.
And like it just like came all off when I moved here and I dropped like 30 pounds. I came back up to 195, but like it was crazy. But that gi, it was so huge. And then I gave it to Dan.
Oh yeah.
He was even smaller than me. I was like,
swimming in that.
I was like, hey bud, do you want a gi? I'll give it to you for. I think I gave him like $50 or something like that. I was like, here's this gi that's like 2 sizes too big for me. And then he went on to give it to someone else, but
he's been using it as a camping tent ever since.
Yeah, pretty much. It was huge. Oh,
that's awesome. This is kind of like nothing to even do with jiu-jitsu, but speaking of fat, I went to Disneyland last week. There was so many, it was wild. Wild, man. Like people your age, many driving scooters because they couldn't walk.
Oh my goodness.
It was like, I was like, I'm not fat here. This is awesome.
Dude, when I was in Vegas, I saw so many scooter people. I was like, this is
easy, man.
Like,
I saw shapes of people. I'm not even joking. I saw human shapes that I'd never seen before.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. I just don't get it in my head. I'm like, just walk. Like, just
walk.
If you could, like, how do you get that way? I don't know. And I'm not going to fat shame on this or anything like that.
Nobody's fat shaming.
But it's crazy.
You know, I'm no beanpole myself.
Yeah. But it's crazy the difference.
Yeah.
When you get to like one of those resort locations.
Yeah.
When you're like,
No. I'm coming from a place of sympathy.
Yeah.
Totally, 100%. But we live in a community that is like, it's literally like Olympians everywhere here because they come here to train. So like going to a place like that where you see people who are struggling with their diet, with their weight, like it's a different paradigm.
Yeah. We live in a bubble.
Yeah.
We live in a crazy bubble where this, like, I say it, I've said it to quite a few people. And like when I go out hiking or when I'm doing something with my dog or even like just jogging with my dog, I get passed by like 80-year-olds. They're just like,
oh dude,
running by and you're just like, you're the oldest dude ever.
Yeah.
And you're like kicking my ass going up a mountain.
Oh, totally.
Like everybody here is
Yeah.
Incredibly fit, or like, so we live in this crazy bubble.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a different situation. So going back to gi for a second.
Yeah.
You mentioned stinky gis. So there was one guy that was training here for a while and he's been long gone. Obviously no need to mention names, but where I was pretty new and I even called him out and I was like, dude, you can't leave that thing out. It you need to go soak it in vinegar or something. Cause like, it's not cool.
Yeah.
And he got real offended.
Got really hot. I remember that.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but
yeah.
I remember him coming to me. I was like, no, your shit stinks. Like,
oh, he came to you because I said that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I get everything. But he was like, yeah, this guy. I was like, dude, I've told you that. And
really?
Like, that's why people won't roll with you. Because he would leave it like in his car or something.
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't wash it. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Clean your shit. There's hygiene. And I went over that tonight. Like I do that quite often. It's like trim your toenails, trim your fingernails, and wash your shit. Like, as soon as you get home.
No, it's real, man.
Oh,
it's real. Like, dude, before I come to every class, I like brush my teeth, wash my hands, like give myself a little sort of like shower down, you know, like make sure I'm not totally disgusting and
you have to.
And then pound a couple burritos and hit the mat.
Yeah. Some burritos. just get it in you. But real talk, like nobody wants to roll with you. And I put it up on the board as like, and one of the guys was like, whoa. It's like, well, nobody wants to roll with the stinky person.
Yeah.
So if people aren't rolling with you, you're either a jerk, go too hard, or you stink.
Yeah. That's crazy that he came to you and was like, this guy's complaining about my gi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to throw it out. Like, I was mad at him that, like, one of my white belts was, like, calling out, like, it was whatever he was. I was like, dude.
No, he was a white belt.
Was he?
He was a new guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was, like, a British kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but, yeah, this is like, no.
Yeah, no, dude.
Stop being stinky.
Yeah, I'm not engaging with that.
Yeah. I don't have time to deal with stinky. Like the just wash
it. Any tips for getting the stink out?
Vinegar.
Yeah.
Vinegar. There's like that strong vinegar. It's
like the cleaning vinegar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, I got so many gis that like they don't really ever sit.
Yeah.
Like they don't get used and then just sit.
Right.
And then use them again. No, I just get a new gi. I have a gi addiction. So any of the new stuff that I get in, I'm like, I like that.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
the vinegar, it does smell like vinegar afterwards. So make sure like you wash it with the vinegar if it's starting to get that little bit of a stank in it.
Yeah. You know what I've been doing is I fill the bathtub with hot water. I put vinegar in there and borax.
Oh yeah.
And I just let it sit there like all day long, and even like a little bit of detergent too.
Yeah.
And then I know like dryer sheets are not supposedly not good for the air in your house, but like, I've been using those to dry. I dry my gi because I buy them a little bit big, and then they, so yeah.
Another thing that I would say is don't use too much detergent because that actually creates like a coating over the stink.
Oh, really?
So yeah. And a lot of people don't know that. So it smells good until you roll.
Oh, really?
And then that stink starts coming back. So using too much laundry detergent. And this is just me deep diving into like forums of like what to do is like don't put too much.
Yeah.
Because then it gets even worse.
Yeah, I did not know that one.
Yeah, it smells good for like half a roll, and then you're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that would be my advice. And then like even for Nogi, wash that shit as soon as you get home.
Yeah,
don't let anything sit. And I throw all my Nogi stuff in the dryer on the hottest temperature just to hopefully kill stuff.
I got a really good rash guard recently, and it's like super high end. Like it has like a special sort of like thing. I don't know, what do you call that? Like seams on it, like that are
like
almost
the rubber,
like rubberized or whatever. Yeah. And like I know if I throw that in the dryer, it'll really fuck it up. So
no, I have some of those.
Oh, really?
It hasn't done anything to that.
Oh, okay.
Usually those are like, if you look at the tag, usually they're pretty safe to throw in the dryer. I would look at the tag at minimum.
It says don't dry it.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't dry it.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need anything to look tighter on me than it already does. So
look at this guy following the rules.
That's what you know. Hey, here's the other thing I meant to ask you earlier, and maybe we can wrap up with this. You mentioned, I think it was you were talking about yourself and like your personality coming through your rolling, like, or we were talking about being a troll.
Yeah.
Do you? And then we're way off gi topic with that one, I suppose, but like, do you see that in others, like their personality coming through in their roles?
Oh yeah. You'll see like either passive or like the aggressive, or you'll see like people that are just like love to like create. And you'll see them just like Avon. Avon is one of those like creatives that like,
oh yeah,
I want to try this, and she just like,
yeah.
You see her thinking through things, but it's not like you wouldn't see an instructional on it. She just like
figures it out.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful little process. But you see,
that's super cool.
Yeah, you see a lot of people's personality come through once they've been doing it a while. Like when you first start, you're like, oh, most people are like, oh, the coach says do this, I'm gonna do this.
Right. And
some people don't get out of that. Like you'll see like I've seen it before, and it's like some 120-pound woman comes into the club and she has like a pressure game and she's trying to use it against like a 240-pounder, and you're just like, I mean, that's on your coach. Your coach should have told you, change your game around, because that guy's just gonna bench you off. Like everyone plays around and stuff, but like you see it. Some people, their personality shows through, or some people are just like, no, coach says this. I'm very much follow your own path and choose your own adventure, and let's play from there.
So maybe that's a good segue, depending on if we do this next week or not. One thing we've been talking about covering in a future podcast is the eco approach.
Oh yeah, eco versus like traditional.
We can pepper that into an episode, or do an episode on that.
I think that it's worth touching on. I think it's I know people on both sides. I know people that like are for it. I know people that are against it. I know people that do a little bit of both, and I know people that say that you can't do a little bit of both. And I think that we have different opinions on it, so it'll be a pretty cool little chat on that.
I got some things to say about it, but we'll leave it for another episode.
Got some blue belt things.
I got some really interesting, in-depth blue belt opinions about that. Well, with that, I think we've covered a lot. Do you want to wrap it up for gi versus no gi on the Black and Blue podcast?
Well, I'd have to say just do no gi, because it's so much funner with the leg locks.
Well,
no, I think
I just do what the coach tells me. So
no, do what you want. Play around with your games. Let us know in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. I want to know where you like to play. What's your game? And if you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you have any comments, we'd love to hear them. I mean, we got a whole bunch of ideas down, but we're also always up for like viewer discussion and be like, hey, this guy asked this. Let's deep dive into this and play around from there. Unless it's Jared. Jared's not allowed to comment.
Actually, so one thing that we do want to do on the podcast, we're going to start, maybe we'll start this next week. We've been talking about doing, what do we call it?
Scrap stories.
Scrap stories. Yeah. We want to bring in guests every once in a while, maybe not every episode, but every once in a while. Tell your favorite fight stories. It could be a fight that you saw, that you got into. Maybe you don't name any names.
Maybe you name names.
That's even better. But if you guys have awesome fight stories out there, let us know. We'll either call you in, or we'll have you on the podcast if you're local.
Hell yeah.
We're going to start doing some scrap stories as part of a segment on the podcast. So we're stoked about that, because those are fun.
I love it. I love the ideas. I love where this is going. And other than that,
thanks,
signing
everyone.
off.
As
always, like and subscribe. Catch you on the flip side.
Thanks, guys.